usually our methodology, the silver methodology, reinforces the idea of pausing and reflecting a lot. And usually these strategic sessions, there's a lot of pausing and reflecting involved, right? What I want to do today is do a little bit of a pause and reflect, and this would be ingrained in the methodology. All these topics that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to go for categories, right? To make it very intentional. But if you really think about it, when we're building the plan, these 4 categories are ingrained in building the 1-year goal. But sometimes doing a pause and reflect and separating these categories, isolating them could be useful for strategic thinking and finding critical, what I like to call critical focal points, things that we could improve. And it would also allow us to figure out how important they are in the sense of a little bit of improvement, how much difference would it make? Where are we going to measure this difference? In a revenue goal, right? The idea is that every improvement that we make should be focused only in closing more sales, increasing sales, hence increasing revenue, hence increasing profit goal. With that said, does everybody has a paper and a pen or something where they could write? Yep. I want you to write 3 things. This should, in theory, take us 30 seconds. So it's also a skill testing question. If it takes you more than 30 seconds, don't worry, you haven't failed. This is not a test, but that's I want to encourage you to always keep these 3 things in mind. Let me see if there are 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there are 3. The first one is I want you to write down who's your ideal client, as it is stated in your silver plan. If you have it memorized and just by writing the name, you already know who you're talking about, just write the name. If not, I'm going to write Silver Linings ideal client. So I'm going to write James. Who's James? James is a small business owner. I'm going to write it. Okay. Second thing I want us to write, and this is very important, the 4 components we're going to reflect on are ingrained in these 3 things. I want you to write your silver statement. What is it that you do, who you do it for, and the scale. Now, if you're having trouble remember it, feel free to go back to your silver, look at them. But the idea and the message I want to reinforce is that these 3 things should be on top of your mind all the time. If you have these 3 things, every time you look at your action plan, believe me, the reflection we're going to do today would become a second nature. So my silver statement. Oh yeah. And finally, I want you to write what your revenue goal is, your silver goal. Remember that your silver goal is a very specific, very intentionally worded. It says, I will sell X amount of money in revenue to make X amount of money in profit. And then there's also a second component that I don't want us to forget, the impact goal. Achieving this goal will help me achieve, and then remember your primary drivers, right? And if you don't remember, good encouragement to keep it in mind, right? Provide for my family, create X number of jobs, etc. Now, these 3 things are very important. Every time we pause and reflect, every time we sit down and look at our action plan, these 3 things are fundamental. These are very powerful conceptual tools. That's how I like to call them. Your ideal client, how do you use it? Well, every idea that you have, right? Let's imagine that you have, oh, look at that, I'm spotlighted. Now I am nervous. Every idea that you have. Let's imagine that you have an idea. You hear a colleague talking about a new tool or a new social media platform or a new opportunity. Every time you hear and you think about new opportunities to close sales, always contrasted against your ideal client. How? Is my ideal client in that tool? If I use that tool, would I get closer to my ideal client? If I do this event, would I get closer to my ideal client? Any type of idea that is related to increased sales, always ask yourself, is my ideal client, if I do that, would I get closer to my ideal client? So it's a very powerful conceptual tool for planning. Every time you're going to sit down and plan, when you look at your action plan in silver, even look at the actions and ask yourself, if I do this, would this help me to get closer to my ideal client, to connect with them? The idea is that if your ideal client is very well defined, that means that just by being near them, just by connecting with them, your chances of closing sales are going to increase. So with that said, I want you to write a mental note And later today, I want you to look at your ideal client and reflect, is this really my ideal client? If I'm in a room surrounded by these people every day, all day, would I be able to close more sales or not? So that's something right there, right? Very powerful conceptual tool. The silver statement is a powerful conceptual tool for time management. I sell silvers to James at a global scale, right? Whenever you look at everybody offers you an opportunity. If it's not aligned with your silver statement, say no. If you look at your agenda, if you want to decrease your expenses, like let's imagine that you go into a call with your silver expert and you find out that your cash flow is in really bad state and you need to cut some expenses and you don't know which ones to cut, use your silver statement, right? Go each one of your fixed business expenses and ask yourself, is this expense helping me sell silvers? Is this expense helping me to connect with my ideal client? In my case, is James. And is this expense at a global scale? You could use the conceptual tool of the silver statement as a auditing tool. And I cannot stress enough that, am I using slides? No slides. This is all, I'm using my notebook. This is all like top of mind. And the silver statement, I cannot stress enough how powerful it is to take control of your time, and your time is your money. Finally, your silver goal. Well, that's what everything you do is to hit that goal, right? And you could always contrast it, because any action that you make, let's imagine that one action, it's in fact getting you closer to your ideal client. Is in fact about an action plan, right? It's in fact, or a connecting campaign, is in fact about selling your what and the scale, but maybe it's too labor intensive, right? Maybe I have to spend 15 hours a week just to execute this strategy. And what I'm getting, the sales, the returns are not the time investment. So always monitor, having your silver goal in mind, top of mind, it's useful for that, to start optimizing the actions that you're doing, right? Because an action could be aligned with getting closer to your ideal client and your silver statement, but maybe it's not time efficient. So that's why we use the silver goal. With that said, what I want us to do right now, and here's where it's going to get super interesting, especially because it's the end of the year. I want you to write down these 4 categories: finance, customer, internal, and learning. Finance, customer, internal, and learning. And we're going to do a little pause and reflect right now. And I want you to write as much as you can. These 4 categories, if you really think about it, they're inside the 3 statements that we just wrote, right? But I want us to break it down so that we could see it clearer. We're going to reflect in the finance. What does that mean? I want you to write down, right? When we start reflecting, we're going to put some time in the timer, and I want you to start writing. I want you to reflect when I say financial finance. I want you to think about your revenue. I want you to think about your profit, and I want you to think about your cash flow. And I want you to write down, how do you feel in that category? That's why we wrote our silver goal, right? Your goal was this. And I want you to write down, did I achieve it? How do I feel about my cash flow? Am I getting to the end of the month on a paycheck to paycheck? I know it's not a paycheck because you're small business owners, but in the budget, meaning like with the category 1 finance, yes. With well, think of paycheck to paycheck, right? That's the type of thing I want us to reflect in finance. I want you to look at the goal we just wrote, and I want you to reflect very deeply. How do you feel about your goal? How do you feel about your profit? How do you feel about your cash flow in the context of 2025, the year we're closing? For customer, I want you to think and reflect about the following. I want you to think about all the sales you've done this year, all the customer interactions, everything that you have done to get closer to a client. And I want you to reflect about satisfaction, retention, and referrals. I want you to think about your client, and I want you to write down, if I put myself in their shoes, are they satisfied? Have had the majority of my client interactions this year, have they been positive, right? To client satisfaction, let's think. Retention, have I seen the same clients coming back? Have I been able to keep them with me, like resell or upsell? When we're talking about referrals, well, that's a little bit self-explanatory, right? Have my client base, like, have I seen Juan myself? I went, let's say, to buy from Carrion, right? And have I brought my cousin or my girlfriend or boyfriend, right? Have my clients refer people to me? And I want you to reflect deeply, right? Not just write one sentence, write a sentence, think about it. It's going to be a very deep reflection. And so satisfaction, retention, and referrals. In the category of internal, I want you to think about your processes, the quality and speed of your processes, right? Whatever your process is. If you process to close a sale is via social media. Let's imagine the most of your clients come from Google searches that let's lead them to your Instagram, and they send you a DM, and then you write to them. I want you to reflect, is that efficient, right? Is that process, internal process, is it the quality? Is it good? Could I do better? Can I improve? Process, quality, and speed. And finally, in the learning category, and here is where I hope that some truths start to be revealed, I want you to reflect on skills, tools, and mindset, right? What skills do I have? What skills can I improve? Think about your mindset. Have I been positive this entire year? How has that repercuted in my general well-being or my sales? Maybe 10 minutes, so we could write. There's a lot to reflect here, and I want you to take your time, write it. As you could see, we're going to go through the whole that process, and in the end, what I'm hoping is that a lot of truths come out, and you could identify what things can improve in terms of skills, in terms of learning, and in terms of mindset. So 4 different categories, right? If you're having a little bit of doubts as to reflecting in each one of any of those categories, you could always refer back to the 3 statements, right? Who's your ideal client, your silver statement, and your silver goal. So financial, we're gonna reflect on revenue, profit, and cash. Customer satisfaction, retention, and referrals. Internal, I want us to reflect on process, quality, and speed, and learnings, skill, tools, and mindset. Okay? Are we ready? Let's put 10 minutes in the clock. I want you to write, I don't know what happened to my camera. Okay, there we go. Yeah. I want you to write, Carissa has always said to me and everybody in general, write. Usually the truth comes within the 7th layer of writing, right? It's like when your child asks you why can I go out? And you say, because of this. And then why? By the 7th why, then you're actually telling them you might get kidnapped, or because I say so, or so. Write. I want you to write. Okay. Let's put 10 minutes in the clock. Let's do this exercise, and then we're going to come back and we're going to start reflecting and driving some action. I want to leave you with a little bit of homework or a little bit of a reflection, right? I always like to finish the sessions, not just with a reflection, but also with an action. We had 4 main categories, right? We had financial, we had financial, profit, cash, we had customer, internal, and learning. I want you to have a coffee whenever you feel inspired. I want you to sit down, and I want you to think of each one of those quadrants, and I want you to pick one, the most relevant thing that you can improve, right? Because many things came in the reflection, right? In terms of cash flow, some people said, hey, my revenue, my profit is great, but my cash flow is not that well because of the difference between the credit that my customers have and the credit that I provide to my providers. Some people said, hey, my revenue is well, but my profit is not as good, right? Other people mentioned the difference between being niche in terms of the time that I need to invest for a specific income stream or for a specific activity. So I want you to go through each one of those quadrants, and out of all that reflection that you wrote down, because it's going to be impossible for us to work on all of them at the same time, choose one for each. Okay, for financial, I'm going to work in my cash flow, or I'm going to work in my revenue because I need to increase my sales, or I need to better improve my profit skills. In customers, definitely my problem is not satisfaction. It might be retention and upsells or referrals. What can I do to improve that? So we're going to choose one specific category for each one of them. And that would be the focus as we are closing the year and coming up with the next year. That would be my focus, right? At least for the first quarter. How do I improve How do I incorporate these 4 categories in my action plan? So I intentionally work on improving them